everything is bigger in Texas. They didn't say everything was tougher in Texas. Woo. All right, all right. Time, let us sing. If the skies above you are gray, you are feeling so blue. And if your cares and burdens seem great all the whole day through, well, there's a silver lining that shines in the heavenly land. You ought to look by faith and see it, my friend, trusting his promises grand. Oh, sing and be happy, press along to the goal. You ought to trust in him who leads you. He will keep your soul. Oh, let Lord be faithful. Look to Jesus and pray. You ought to lift your voice and say them in song. Now sing and be happy today. Oh, sing and be happy, press along to the goal. You ought to trust in him who leads you. He will keep your soul. Oh, let all be faithful. Look to Jesus and pray. You ought to lift your voice and praise him in song, and sing and be happy today.
First of all, we just like to thank Brother Clay William for having us here on this time to stand before you and declare unto you God's unsearchable word. My colleagues before me have all done a magnificent job. And I must say that my brothers, I love my brothers. We had a great time in Midland, Texas, and we're having a great time here in DeSoto, Texas. And I always love preaching with them. But it's just good to be here and to stand before you and declare God's word. When Brother Clay gave me this subject, I pondered on it a while and I looked at it. And when I looked back at the tower, it came to me. The believing it all worship of Paul. Now, this is a churchy lesson here because Paul had some things that he had to go through. Some things that was not very popular for him, but nevertheless he was believing in what he was doing. Even when he was persecuting the church, he believed in it strongly. And now while he is serving and preaching God's word, he believed ever so much strongly in it. Looking at Acts the 23rd chapter, verses 1, 2, 3. And Paul earnestly, beholding the council, said, Men and brethren, I have lived in all good conscience before God until this day. And the high priest Ananias commanded them that stood by him to smite him on the mouth. Then said Paul unto him, God shall smite thee the white wall. For sittest thou to judge me after the law, and command me to be smitten contrary to the law? It led me to think that they didn't know who they was fooling with. They didn't know that Paul really knew the law. And my text is coming from the 24th chapter, verse 14. But I confess unto thee that after the way which they call heresy, so worship I the God my Father, believing all things which are written in the law and in the prophets. Good friend of mine by the name of Brother Johnny McGee used to quote Habakkuk 2 and 2 all the time. Write the vision up on tables. Make it plain. Oh, he that read it may run. Paul was writing it plain. Paul was making it plain. And so by dawn, Paul had to go through some things. It's some folks came up in Paul's life that just didn't like what he was doing and what he was saying. I stopped by to tell you this evening, when we stand for God's word and we stand strong upon what we believe, church, we're going to have some Felix, we're going to have some Tertullus, we're going to have some Ananias, and we're going to have some elders in our lives. As was stated, I started preaching in 1982. And when I first began preaching, I almost stopped and turned and went back. I found out preachers have a rough job. Preachers have things that they have to go through, because we have to teach, we have to preach God unsearchable word, and everybody's not going to like what we're preaching when you stand for what is right. So Paul was believing it all. He said, I didn't share any of the gospel from you. I don't want your blood up on my hands. I believe I can read in 1 Corinthians 9 in the verses 16. Paul said, for though I preach the gospel, I have nothing to glory of. For the necessity is laid upon me, and woe unto me if I preach not the gospel. Paul was standing and preaching the gospel, and the Pharisees and the Sadducees was out there, and it was a division among them, but yet Paul had to preach God's unsearchable word. Am I right about it? We as preachers today, we ought not to share God's word just to be popular in the sight of man. Am I right about it? Go with me, if you will, and get for me Acts the 23rd chapter. And we're going to begin looking at a few verses here. Verse number 12, if you have it, read with me. Acts 23 and verse number 12.
And when it was,
the Bible said, now this was the plot against Paul's life, because he was standing and he was preaching the death, the burial, and the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Sadducees did not believe in the death and burial and getting up out of that old grave. I'm right about it. But Ecclesiastes, the 3rd chapter, let us know we're going to be planted one day, and one day we're going to have to get up out of that old ground. I'm right about it. So Paul was standing and he was preaching death, the burial, and the resurrection of Jesus Christ. And he said, I'm called. Have you ever been called into the council for preaching God's word, for standing up for God's word? The Bible said, read with me.
And when it was day,
and when it was day,
certain of the Jews banded
together. Now, when you preach God's word, some Jews gonna band together against you. Believe it or not, you're gonna have some mouths begin to talk on you. You're gonna be ostracized from the pulpits. Listen to what I'm saying. I know I preached a sermon once. I'm not gonna say where. And it was, I gave it the title of What If God Took Your Fence Down? And I didn't know if I was preaching against anyone. I was just preaching God's word. I thought I did a good job. Preacher never did call me back there anymore. If I'm wrong, I'm just wrong. Help me out. That's what I tell my members in Bible study. If we're wrong, then let's try to look at this thing and come together on the same thing, what thus said the Lord. That's what Paul was trying to do with these Sadducees. He was trying to get them to understand the just and the unjust is going to go to the grave one day. And the just and the unjust going to have to get up out of that old grave one day. They did not like what Paul was preaching, what Paul was saying. They made a curse. Am I right about it? They said that we will not sleep or we will not eat until this man Paul is dead or this man Paul is slain. And I tell you, they do preachers like that today in the church of Christ. When you stand for what God said, when you stand for this word, I'm so glad Paul was all believing Paul. He was a worshiper of God. Even when he came into the city of Athens, Greece, and he looked around, and everywhere he looked, he saw men and women that have turned from God and began to serve our God. And it grieved into his heart. I done seen things happen in the church today, and I'm talking about us preachers. Instead of we trying to help one another, preachers go back and start talking about one another. And he's down there and he's tearing the church up. Just because he's preaching God's unsearchable word. He's preaching what the Bible has told him to preach. Paul said, woe is up on me if I preach not the gospel. That scripture is not to everybody. It's to only preachers. God's word will be upon us. I know they'll say it in different sermons this morning. That we pervert God's word. God says the plagues written in this book will be upon us. James tells us to be not many masters, for we shall receive a greater condemnation. If I don't preach God's word, God is going to whoop me more harder than he whooped you. I'd rather go through a little hell down here than to have God whooping on me. I'm telling you about it. I got to please my Creator and my Maker. I believe Paul said it one time, man has begun to serve the creature more than the Creator. Am I right about it? Read with me. What did the Bible say?
And there were more than 40 which
there was more than 40
that made this conspiracy. Against
Paul. And what I'm talking about, they making this on Paul. And Paul was an innocent man. Paul was an innocent man. Why don't we stand with our brothers, our preachers, that is bold enough to stand strong and preach God's word? We are the one that have to go through so much trials and so much tribulation. But you know what? I can read over in 2 Timothy, the 3rd chapter, long about verse 10 and 13. Go there with me, brethren. Long about verse 10 and 13. If you have it, begin reading with me.
But thou hast fully known my doctrine.
2 Timothy 3, verses 10 and 12. The Bible says what?
But thou hast fully known my doctrine.
So you fully known my doctrine.
Manner of life.
You know my what? My manner of life. You know, if you standing for the truth, people's going to know your manner of life. If you preaching God's word, people's going to know your manner of life. Now, where I come from, I know I preach in Hallsville, but I stay in Longview. Where I come from, we like sound doctrine. We want sound doctrine. But some of my preach brothers don't want sound doctrine. I'm telling you what I've learned through the years in dealing with us. And when you preach sound doctrine, as my brother say all the time, you've been ostracized, you've been put out. See, these preachers have, I ain't going to say it, but all, some of these preachers have their little cliques. Yeah, they have their little cliques. I done seen it. I don't know what's going on around here, but I know what's going on where I come from. They have their little cliques and things. Oh, we gonna separate ourselves from him. He's a troublemaker. Now you look in this lesson here. They call Paul a troublemaker because Paul stood, and he stood for what was right. He was all believing Paul. He worshiped God. He understood that he himself was going to have to die one day. Then when we get up, we want to make sure that we see God's face in peace and hear him say, well done. I've been at Northside close to 23 years. And I tell the church there all the time, and it's just to put them in remembrance of some things. I said, I can remember when my dad was in this same pulpit preaching. I remember when my mother used to sit over here. I remember when other brethren used to sit here and sit there. And now they gone on. That ought to behoove us to get up out of that bed on Sunday morning and be to church on time. Be to church. I can't tell for the life of me why we can't move when God said move. But when the boss man on the job said you be here at 6 o'clock, we'll be there at 5 o'clock. We got to start putting God first in our life. We got to do those things to make our calling and our election sure. Read with him, brother. I got to run a little bit.
My doctrine, manner of life.
Say, go back and get that again.
But thou hast fully known my doctrine.
You fully know my doctrine. You know that I'm going to stick with the word of God.
Manner of life.
And you know Paul got his by revelation from God. It's time out for talking this stuff about two gospels. Paul preached one gospel. Peter preached another gospel. Paul got his by the revelation from God. The 12 apostles didn't get theirs that way, but they got theirs when Jesus went back to heaven and sent the Holy Spirit back to them. Same gospel from the same source. Am I right about it? I see in the Church of Christ where we're talking about water baptism is not essential unto salvation. Something wrong with that. Perverting and changing God's word. Preacher came over this morning. We had not too long ago, we were discussing, and brother that is a member of the church said you don't have to worship on a Sunday morning. Said we can do it on a Saturday. We can do it on a Monday, Tuesday. That's a bunch of mess in the Lord's church. And when we stand up for it, we'll be talked about and we'll be put down. Something wrong with it. Something wrong with it. Paul was all believing, worshipful. The Bible said, read.
Thou hast fully known my doctrine, manner of life.
You know my doctrine. You know my manner of life.
Purpose.
My purpose.
Faith.
My faith.
Long suffering.
My long suffering. I had to be long suffering with this thing. We just can't give up on a person right off. We got to spend a little time with them. But Paul spent some time with those Jews, didn't he? Finally, he said he had to dust the dust off his feet. And he turned and went to the Gentiles. I'm right about it. Sometimes we can lose our soul hanging around. You know what I'm saying? Read, brother.
Charity.
You know my charity, my love.
Patience.
And don't tell me Paul didn't have love for the church. He wouldn't have failed heaviness. He wouldn't have did what he did for the church if he didn't have love for the church. We ought to be like that today. When we see the church is going out into left field, it ought to hurt us to our hearts. I see how the church is going now. The church is not like it was when I was coming up. The church, the word didn't change. We are the one that changed. We wanted to change with society. We want to be more like the world. We want to, I pulled up on Facebook, Church of Christ had praise dancing in it. Little young girls up on the stage and all. It's the Church of Christ. I ain't calling no name, but I know what I'm talking about. If I didn't, I'd keep my mouth shut. I believe that Solomon said in Proverbs 18 and 13, said, he that answer a question before he hears is folly and it's shame to him. So sometimes we need to sit back and just sit up and shut up and listen sometime. I was preaching at one congregation in Jefferson, and one of the brothers used to be so quiet all the time, and I finally asked him, why was he so quiet in Bible study? And he told me, he said, Brother Bradley, said, I sit back and I listen. And said, when I get ready to talk, I know what I'm talking about. We need some more Pauls. We need to stand strong for God's word. And for Paul standing strong with God's word, that they had a plot against them. I look over in 2 Timothy, the 4th chapter. Paul said, I charge ye therefore before God and the Lord Jesus Christ, who shall serve the quick and the dead at his appearing and his kingdom. He said, preach the word. Be instant in season and out of season. Reprove, rebuke, and exhort with all long doctrine. For the time will come when man will not endure sound doctrine. The church of Christ will not endure sound doctrine, but they will heap to themselves teachers having itching ears, and they will turn their ears from the faith and be turned unto favor. But Paul said, watch thine all things, endure affliction, go through this little mess that we're going through down here. Great is your reward, which is in heaven. Paul accuses Ananias, the high priest, the elders, and Tertullus. He was a lawyer. He was an orator. He was a great speaker. He was the one that called Paul and said that Paul was a pestilent fellow. In other words, he said he was a disease. He said, you're a disease because you're standing up and you're telling the truth. Don't tell me they won't talk about you when you tell the truth. They'll put you down. They went out and they accused him. They even said he came into the temple and he polluted the temple, and they couldn't even prove what they were saying. And so when Paul defends, when he got ready to defend himself, Paul was glad to defend himself. Because he knew what he had done. He knew what he was standing for. All the accusation they brought against him, they couldn't prove it. Preachers, I don't know if you, like me, I don't know if you've been lied on. I know I have. I know in the book of Acts I can read where they lied on Jesus. Couldn't find anything on him, so they suborned some men. And that just simply means they paid some men to lie on my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. I've been preaching God's word for a long time now, and I'm not going to turn around now. I done got too old now to try to go back out in left field. It's time for me to be all about God's business. The older we get, the closer we ought to get to our God and our Savior, Jesus Christ. I can't understand for the life of me when some of us wait till we get up and get 1 foot in the grave and 1 foot out, and then want to act like we're 16 or 17 years old. I know a sister asked me once, and I'm going to say a sister because that's what it was, asked me to bring a sermon on marriage. I brought that sermon on marriage, and at the back of the door, we were standing back, she reached out, and I guess she did it on purpose, went to shake my hand and pulled it back. See, when we preach God's word and we stand for what is right, you're going to go through some trials, you're going to go through some tribulation. Paul was going through this stuff because he stood for what is right. He said, I'm called in question because I preach the death, the burial, and the resurrection of Jesus Christ. The believing it all. Worship of Paul. I didn't get to this part. I'm going to try to throw that in there right quick. We need to stop flattering. You know, we flatter some of these preachers. And they're the ones, some of them, the one is not standing for what thus said the Lord. I've heard a lot, and I'm not flattering Brother Clay, but I heard a lot about Brother Clay, and I admire what he stands for. Stand for the word. Stay with the word. Because this world is not our home. We're going to have to leave this world one day. And when we get up out of that grave, we want to make sure that we see God's face in peace and hear him say, well done, my good and my faithful servant. The all believing Paul. Sometimes I think that some of us need to be knocked down, and I'm not talking about nobody in this room, it's just me. Let me put it this way, we need to be knocked down sometime and become blind like Paul. Because when Paul was knocked down on the road to Damascus, after Paul got up, he saw more clearly, didn't he? It's something about the darkness, am I right about it? I can read what my Bible tells me in the book of Revelation, there will be no darkness in heaven. Isn't that something? So we ought to fight just as hard as we can to go to that place where there'll be no more dying, there'll be no more sorrow, there'll be no more pain. Every day will be a day. You won't even have to go to sleep there because the Bible said there'll be no night there. Paul, the all believing Paul, the all worshiper Paul. They put him down. They called him a pestilent fellow. They say he was a plague. They say he was a disease because he stood for what thus said the Lord. My preaching brothers, let us keep teaching. Let us keep preaching. Let us keep praying. Most of all, just stand for God's word. And one day, God's going to dispatch his son back to earth. Oh, and Timothy said, some going to be glad to see him, and some not going to be glad to see him. May God bless you. May God keep you. This is our prayer. I pray that I've said something that will encourage all of us to keep on keeping on.
Let us say amen. I want to thank Brother Bradley for that encouraging sermon.